This is One Fat Boy, and here are my NBA game predictions for March 9th of 2022. Tonight there's 12 games. I'll be going over the spreads and over-unders for each of them. For the Bulls at the Pistons, I'll be leaning towards the Bulls -6, and they should be able to win the game overall. I think even though Detroit beat Atlanta in their last game in overtime, I think the Bulls are a better quality team than the Pistons, and the Hawks in general. So I think Chicago should be able to handle themselves against the Pistons and get the job done. I'll be leaning towards under 224.5, as I think this will be a little bit more of a defensive game than what the Bulls have usually done. And I think the Pistons are going to have a hard time trying to keep up with the Bulls' scoring overall. So I'll be leaning towards an under 224.5, even though I'd probably take like an over 216 too, but I expect it to be like around in that area. But I think like 228 would be the top, but 224 under that would be a reasonable bet. For Boston at Charlotte, we're going with Boston -7.5. I think Boston's been playing too well as of late to lose to the Hornets. And plus, the Hornets played last night, so I just see Boston winning this game no problem. And especially with between Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, I think between them they can score enough and outpace Charlotte if it does turn into a shootout. So I'll be going over 226.5, as I really expect Boston to score a lot. Charlotte, as long as they show up and just not brick everything, is not affected so strongly by Boston's defense, I think they should go over 226.5. But if you take an under, I wouldn't be against that either, because I wouldn't be surprised if Charlotte just bricks and just crumbles under Boston's defense. But I think Boston will just have a big early lead, so they won't have to play as hard in the second half, which will allow more points to be scored. For Atlanta at Milwaukee, if you want Milwaukee -5.5, even though Milwaukee played last night, if I remember correctly, and even if they didn't, I think Milwaukee is just a better team than Atlanta. They're playing in Milwaukee, so that's another boost for them, unless they have better talent than Atlanta. So shouldn't be a problem, but just knowing how Milwaukee plays is just random. I can never trust them. But the way Atlanta's been playing as of late, I can't trust them either. So if I ever have to choose between the talent of these two teams, I'll just have to lean towards Milwaukee. As you know, you have Giannis, you have Drew Holiday, you have Chris Middleton. Right now, Atlanta just have Trae Young and Clint Capella. And I think pretty much 3 is greater than 2, so Milwaukee just has the advantage. I will be going under 236.5, as I think Milwaukee should be able to clamp down on Atlanta, and might be a little tired from last night, so I don't expect, I believe they scored 142 last night, so I don't expect them to cover 142 points again, but I still expect them to be in the 120s, but maybe lower, or high teens in the hundreds, but since I expect them to win, it will probably add up to 230. For the Suns at Miami, even though the Suns played last night in a closer game, I'll still take the Suns within 8. Suns usually don't get blown out. They'll keep it close. They keep their composure throughout the game, and they're able to keep it close. And the system they run keeps them in games no matter who's on the floor. So I expect that against Miami. Miami should win, so I won't be surprised if they do. But I also won't be surprised if the Suns win as well, as they are a quality team overall. I will be leaning towards under 218.5, as both teams play solid defense. Miami, I think they have better defense rating overall, but that's how Miami's been winning their games. And a lot of Miami games are lower scoring, so hence I'll be going with an under for this game with under 218.5. For the Thunder at Minnesota, we have Minnesota -14.5, with the Thunder playing last night and how the Timberwolves have been handling these lower tier teams. I won't be surprised if Minnesota covers this 14.5 spread, as they've been taking it to these younger bottom of the barrel teams. Even though I think out of these bottom of the barrel teams, I think Thunder are the better half of the bottom of the barrel, but they're still the bottom league for the reason. But Minnesota, with how they play defense pretty intensely and just how they're able to just put the ball in the basket very efficiently, that just puts that spread at 14.5 for a reason. I will be going over 229.5, as Minnesota should be able to just dumpster in a lot of points, and they'll also give up a lot of points too, but they'll just be dumpstering the ball into like the basket with reckless abandon. I wouldn't be surprised if they have like 134 more, but reasonably they probably should have like 125. For the Magic at New Orleans, we go with the Pelicans -8. So both teams played last night, and Orlando played in a close game, but I think there's more talent on the Pelicans and more reliable talent in that case. So I'll be going with the Pelicans -8 and just winning in general. And also they're playing in New Orleans, so another advantage for the Pelicans. We'll be going under 223.5 because both teams played last night. So might be a little flat-footed, but that could be flat-footed on defense or flat-footed on offense. Either or, I think, be under 223 because if you're flat-footed on defense, I mean, you're going to give up more points, but if the other team's flat-footed on offense, you're not able to take advantage of it. So I think I'll just lean towards under. Orlando's not been playing too hot on the offensive as of late, and the Pelicans, they've been playing better defense and just they're more offensive as of late, but overall, I think it'll just be easier to bet towards an under in this game. So put it around like 223.5, but I'd also take like an over 212.5. So it should be like somewhere in that like 210 to 225 range, somewhere in there. For the Lakers at Houston, we have Houston +3.5. So Lakers should win this. Well, they really should win this, but since the Houston Rockets are younger, and if you just keep them in the game, as we've seen recently, if you just keep like a young team in the game and they have a lead towards the end, they've been keeping those leads as of late. So if the Lakers try and pull that, I wouldn't be surprised if the Rockets come away with a win. And if it's close at the end, it's like, and the Lakers need to come from behind, it's like I think Houston can stay within that 3.5. Like as long as you can put a buy on LeBron, either force him to score all the points or force others to step up in his place. It's like got to do either or. But I think Houston, just being younger, they're able to play all 4 quarters with higher energy. So Houston +3.5. We'll be going under 235.5, as I do expect when the over-under does come out, when I see it, it'll be towards the higher end, because I believe this should be over 222. That seems reasonable, but I don't see this going over like 240, but I think under 235.5 is probably where we'll end up, and I think I'd take an under for this game, as I think the Houston, if they just play with higher energy, that'll just reduce the opportunities that the Lakers will have to rebound and just get second chance points and all the loose balls, and then the Lakers will, well, also the Houston offense, not as consistent. Like you just can't pass one person, they're just going to get a bucket. So hence why Houston's scoring is kind of up and down, even though they are towards the higher end, just because they give a lot of points. But I just have a weird feeling that will just be like an under game. For Toronto at the Spurs, I'll be going with Toronto +1, even though this is a game I would not really want to touch the spread on at all. It's like usually it's within like 2 points. I usually don't bet the spread unless I just feel really confident one team. Right now for these teams, they've been playing like similar style of basketball too. So it's really just a coin flip. I think Toronto is just like a little bit better version. I think I can rely on those players a little bit better than the Spurs, but as for me, I would not bet on the spread for this game, but I would just lean towards Toronto. I will be going over 217.5 though, as Spurs games are high scoring, and Toronto can keep up with that type of scoring. Even though I think Toronto can play better defense than the Spurs, I just do expect like a more scory game. Even though I think the spread will probably end up for this game probably be around like 226, but I think it's just safer to bet like an over 217.5 than trying to match what the spread will put, because I think overall when I see the spread, this would be a game that I'd bet on like neither the spread nor the over-under. For the Knicks at the Mavericks, we're going with the Knicks +8. I think the way that Knicks have been playing as of late, taking care of business, keeping it close against like quality teams. And I think +8 against the Mavericks, that's more than enough points for the Knicks to stay within for the Mavericks. Because even though the Mavericks play like really stellar defense, I think the way that Knicks have adjusted their offense and can play defense, that'll keep them in the game. I do expect the Mavericks to win, but as once again, I think the Knicks, I wouldn't be surprised if they do win. It will be going under 223.5 though, as both teams are known for their defense. Even though I think both teams have been scoring better overall, I think defense will be the shining star, what will guide either team to the win. So hence I'll be leaning under 223.5. For Portland at the Jazz, so a spread of 17.5. I think this is the biggest spread I've seen all season. Which I wouldn't be surprised if the Jazz do cover the spread. It's like, who's on Portland? It's like you just gotta slow down Simons, and if you do that, it's like that's a win. Like if you lose the game, that's embarrassing on your part. But covering 17.5 points, I think it's just too big. It's like if someone just gets going on Portland, that'll keep them within 17.5 points. So hence I just have leaned towards Portland plus 17.5. We'll go over 221.5 because if it goes under that, that means Portland didn't score the ball and Utah did all the scoring. Like the Portland would be in like the 80 points, but I think Portland, they'll be able to score like 100 points. Like they'll be able to score enough to where this goes over 221.5. But the Jazz should win. Like if they don't, I just expect them to be like out first round of playoffs for sure. Not in like the Western Conference Finals, that's for sure. For Denver at Sacramento, I'll be going with Denver at -4.5. I think Denver is just a better team than the Kings. Pretty much you have Jokic on the floor, and it's close in the fourth quarter, and you're playing against not a top-tier team. You're probably going to win that game, as Jokic just backpacks the Nuggets towards wins, and he's going to do that consistently all season. And the Kings are going to have a tough time trying to slow him down. They already met 2 times after the All-Star break. Denver won it twice. The first one convincingly, the second one a little closer, but I think Denver will be able to repeat that and win again without too much of a problem. We'll be going over 222.5 as both teams have been scoring the ball well. So lean towards an over in this game that'd be the smart thing to do, as neither team should like clamp down on defense. They haven't started all year, so why start this game? And I believe those previous 2 matchups were both over 222.5. I believe like the lowest one might have been 225 in total, but that seems pretty safe for the over. For the Wizards at the Clippers, going with the Clippers -4. I think the Clippers will turn it around, even though it's the second night of a back-to-back for them. They were blown up by the Warriors, so they weren't expended too much. If you want to take the Wizards, I mean, that's not a bad bet either, because overall this probably isn't a game that I would bet on the spread for, because in theory the Clippers are better coached, more reliable. Maybe not the last 2 games, but more reliable throughout the season to like cover their spreads or win games that they shouldn't. But the way the Wizards with Porzingis back, he has like newfound, youth maybe, because he's playing on a new team, wants to prove himself. So if you see that, bet on the Wizards. For the over, I'll be going over 220, as Washington's defense not great, and if the Clippers are going to turn around and like cover a spread of -4, that means you got to score the ball, or just play like some stellar defense, and just like not make any shots and still win. But I feel against the Wizards defense, you should be able to score, because I think the Wizards can, with the people on their team, like find ways to score even through like some tough defense. So hence why I just have to go over 220. Thank you for watching. As always, bet responsibly, have fun betting, and always have fun watching sports. Once again, thanks for watching.